Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest today is Ozgur Tohumcu. He's the CEO of a company called Tantalum. Tantalum Corporation is the website.com. Ozgur, how are you doing today?
Very good, Richard. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Tell me about Tantalum. What's the idea behind the company?
Sure. The idea behind the company is it's basically originates around our vision to build a marketplace for connected car services and data monetization for cars. If I can expand on that a little bit, if you look at the history of cars, they used to be four wheels and a steering wheel, maybe until 1960s. As a matter of fact, the first sensor in a car was introduced in 1968 by Bosch in Germany. And since then, we have seen cars becoming more and more electronic. Over the years, they have become more software and less hardware. Of course, becoming more software-centric, a lot of things becoming driven by software, more sensors. You basically go into a domain where cars are generating a lot of data about what's going on. And these are starting from the very basic things like location data. But if you go into some more niche domains, I mean, even some cars have sensors, like they could track how many times a glove compartment is being opened and closed. In some of the advanced cars today, you have almost like 100 sensors generating data about what's happening in the car, about the usage of the car, how the car is being driven. Just to give you a nutshell, I mean, it's almost like 25 gigabits of data are being generated every day by some of these more advanced models of cars. So as this data becomes available, of course, there are, just like any other domain that we're seeing, you have a lot of disruption happening, different players coming in like ourselves who are looking how to make best use of this data for consumers and businesses. So ultimately what we do is we look at this data that's coming from the car, and then we design connected car services around this data. What I mean by that is we look for ways to improve your parking experience. We look for ways when you go into a gas station, your fueling experience. When you're stranded on the side of the road, we make sure you get roadside assistance fast and you can actually track the tow truck coming your way. We look for ways to save you on insurance premiums. So think about all the services you need around your car. Think about your relationship with the car and all the things you do for the car. Our business is around using the data and building usable and relevant services for you around that. So in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can see all these concepts that you want to improve, but what about the data itself? What uses have you thought of that you think maybe you don't know what they're going to be used for yet? You know, what ideas have come to you from the data? Any surprises, things you don't know what to do with, or things that you have a good idea you want to utilize in the data stream?
I mean, I think you can start with easy things like, let's say, I mean, some are actually quite simple concepts, but think about your parking experience today, the way we envision parking, and it's now actually being implemented in US through our partnership with Harman and AT&T. We actually would love for you to be able to, through a voice recognition, say, you know what, I would like to park my car, or just say, park my car, and then you are directed towards a parking lot that we have an agreement with. The parking lot knows where the car is, the car knows where the parking lot is, you're navigated towards that, and your credit card information is actually in the system, so you just drive into the parking lot, you stay there for a number of hours, and you exit. And that whole experience is, I mean, if you think about it, it's very simple. It's basically location-based data. It's the make and model of your car that's being recognized by the parking garage through vehicle recognition. Your payment information is already embedded in the app. So a lot of this is actually, I mean, we can start with very convenient, simple use cases. Then on the other side, I think we're looking for ways to, for example, on the insurance, how you drive makes a huge difference based on your risk profile. So we are able to basically, provided that you decide to share your data, we are able to see how you drive, how you speed, how you're obeying the speed limits. And then insurance companies are coming after these good drivers to actually allow them and save them premiums on their insurance. So, and I think your point is valid. We're in the early phases. We're still bringing a number of customers on board. So as more data comes in, I think we will see even further opportunities to cross-examine and come up with new ways to monetize and find use cases for that data.
In regards to the driving data, I mean, I don't drive perfectly. I think I drive pretty well, but I probably screw up for sure, maybe a couple times a day. Do you think that people are going to want to share it or be forced to share it? And have you looked at the data? Do you see that people drive perfectly, or do they tend to, speed a couple miles over a few times, or roll a stop sign, or things like that? Like, what do you think is going to happen with that particular data?
I think, I mean, it's ultimately what we see is, let's say if you're a dad with two kids, your insurance premiums from a risk profile perspective are already probably low. We see that demographic is probably not going to be willing to share their data. This particular proposition, for example, is suitable for teenage drivers, where with limited driving history, with a high risk profile. So if you are in that bracket, let's say, and if you are willing to share your data, and if you are actually a much better driver than the stereotypical teenage driver, then you're going to see a lot of savings coming. So I would say for someone like you, if your insurance premiums are low, then I don't think the proposition is good for you. It's probably better for people who are paying, for whatever reason, is perceived as a high risk profile, either because of prior history, because of demographics. I think that would be significantly more suitable, I would say.
Well, do you think that, I guess the insurance company will adapt, but I'm sure they're going to see that no one, follows all the rules all the time. I highly doubt that. And then,
of course,
I mean, with the enticement of lower risk premium, they could probably offer it to everybody, and actually probably everyone would do it at some point. But it just kind of becomes like their surveillance issue. People in their cars, I think they want to be private and have their own little space. And I just wonder how the invasion of data is going to come up against people's expectation of privacy in their cars, or if they'll let it go.
I think, I'll give you, first of all, from a data sharing perspective, before you even share your data, I think you are basically given an opportunity to review why is the data being used for. I think we have been extremely diligent when it comes to that. And it's really optional. How we designed our systems are, when it comes to certain types of data, you can choose, I'm willing to share this, I'm not going to share this, and you have full control over where that data, like which entities that data is shared with. So I think from a control perspective, you have full control over the data. Then when it comes to your other part of the question, okay, what happens when the data is shared? I think it's really up to you basically to make sure you are getting. If you're happy with it, the way I see it is, if you look at some of the social media sites, what I have seen is when people see great benefit of using a tool, then they're willing to share data, provided they know exactly how it's being shared. I think some of the things that we have seen in the media with some of the social media companies, I think definitely, especially in the US, alerted consumers and enterprises a lot more. I can tell you, for example, a lot of the issues that went ahead with some of the social media companies in like early 2018 basically created a lot of issues for us to be able to conclude our contracts and some of the security and privacy type of things significantly longer than that we anticipated. So there was a lot more scrutiny being put on this domain. So you're absolutely right. But ultimately, you're in control of the data. You get to choose whether to share or not.
How about for car safety? Is there going to be a car-to-car communication where my car will be looking at other cars on the road, judging their speed and distance and how fast they're approaching me or they're moving into my lane or, that kind of stuff to improve the safety of the driving experience. I think that would be a huge area that needs to be addressed and looked at.
Exactly. Again, if you look at the very early use cases, of course, I gave some examples on convenience and maybe savings. But ultimately, when it comes to these types of technologies, you are right. The most favorable ones have been around safety. It could be safety of where the car is. Let's say if the car is stolen or whatever, I think we want to be able to track that. And to your point, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, especially knowing, what's happening around you. I can tell you a huge use cases around, like sometimes there's an accident, and you don't know that there's an accident, and there are more cars crashing into that. It's such a simple thing to fix, actually, with today's technologies. All you need to get is some sort of a notification that there's indeed an accident, just like 100 yards ahead. And some of the very basic info is not flowing into today's drivers and causing a lot more issues and accidents. So I think V2V communication is a hot domain. A lot of the telcos, communication companies are very much interested in that. I think with 5G, you're going to see a lot more of these use cases being enabled as well, because 5G is going to bring even faster speeds as well as lower latencies, meaning it's going to be significantly faster for information to move from one point to another. So for you to be informed about an accident that is happening or about to happen, you'll be notified lightning fast, significantly faster than today's speeds, basically.
Yeah, and I would think accident reporting is going to happen a lot faster too, because I would bet a typical accident, the first minute or two at least, if not 5 minutes, is spent with people going, getting out of the car as they can and, talking to each other. But, an accident could happen, and then within, seconds in certain scenarios, police and, medical personnel could be called. The accident could be resolved a lot faster. So I could see that.
Exactly. And this is actually one thing our technology provides today already. And it's part of our product launch in US that went ahead end of September. We basically have a feature called Automated 911. So what happens is we can, if you are using our product, we know that you were in an accident because we have quite elaborate crash detection modules. We know that there has been an accident in that car. And what we do is, and some of the automotive companies do this today, but not all of them. What we do is we basically give you a call to your mobile phone. And if you're unable to answer it once, twice, or three times, then we know that you have been in an accident and you are unable to answer your phone. So it must be serious. So we can actually do an automated 911 call followed by 911 dispatch. And I think that in itself, you can do it in 60 seconds plus, just like to your point. And that's a life-saving intervention and use of technology. I think that's super useful.
What about cars, again, looking at other cars or other vehicles on the road and using their own sensors to report in what other cars are doing, or to look and see road conditions, or to look and see, the car sensors could be used for you, but they also could be used to observe the environments, again, and gather lots of data. So if you have a highway with, dozens of cars that are hooked up with your technology, I guess the combined observations of all those cars would probably give you a whole nother stream of data that could be very useful.
Exactly. If you think about typical cars today, again, the analogy I would use is typically cars are in listening mode today, meaning they're receiving information either through their navigation systems or through safety systems or data flowing in, but they're not necessarily as much transmitting. So I think precisely to your point with the number of sensors, their ability to actually, essentially car is moving, it's mobile, there's a number of sensors installed. So the car, I think in the future, and not too distant in the future, I think in the near future, we're going to see more and more of the cases where cars are listening as well as transmitting, meaning, they are sensing what's happening around them, the road conditions, traffic conditions, the traffic flow, potential hazards, and they're going to be transmitting that information to ultimately, with cloud infrastructures, with faster speeds in mobile broadband. I think that central repository of information is going to be available to all cars traveling. So once again, I think you make a great point. Cars themselves will be collecting and transmitting and sharing this information. So it's the typical network effect. More cars who have these types of technologies installed, the richer the data is going to be. And I think the value of the system, the whole connected car system as a whole, not the individual car, is going to become exponentially more valuable.
I think what would be useful too is if a car, as it goes through its gas tank or as it goes through its charge, if it could pull up the location of gas stations or electric charging stations that are closest and show on a brief map, either through your phone or again, maybe the car senses it, it just knows where gas stations are or charging stations, but it could tell you where to get fuel quickly and in which direction. Same thing if the battery starts acting up or other parts of the car start to malfunction, it could show you where repair stations are, that kind of thing. So the car could help itself if it gets in trouble.
Exactly. And I think you touched on a good point. I think the key word you mentioned there is very dear to our hearts, like the car helping itself. If you think about your relationship with the car today, it's a little bit like the analogy I like using is a little bit like one with of a high maintenance girlfriend or a boyfriend. Because if you think about how you construct your relationship with a car, you're looking for parking for your car, you're taking your car for smoke test, you're taking your car for repair, you're taking your car, you renew the insurance on your car. I think you're going to see more and more of these types of basic services that cars are maintaining themselves. Exactly to your point, the car knows exactly what's wrong with it, and it's even going beyond that. I think they're moving towards more and more predictive maintenance type of things, saying, it looks like this might break down in the next 300-400 kilometers or miles. So it might be a good idea to actually take it to the shop now. And while doing that, precisely to your point again, the car is actually able to give you a choice of garages or repair facilities where you can take your car. It could be based on just like any other consumer-oriented app. I think it's going to become based on proximity, based on consumer reviews, based on price points. We have all this information available, and again, it's not like too distant in the future when it comes to your example on fuel, both on electric charger facilities as well as gas stations. We are starting to provide this service already here in UK, and then when it comes to repair, this is also something that we will start providing in 2018 before the end of the year already in US. So a lot of this information is available. Again, it goes back to my very original statement. I think, how do you put the data to its use? How do you get the repair locations, price points, and consumer reviews, and couple that with what's happening in the car and create a use case that's actually valuable for the driver? I think that's where we focus in terms of our efforts.
Okay, very good. I see probably what will happen is this will happen with common use vehicles, buses, that kind of thing, because people won't really have a choice about sharing the data. It'll be useful to share the data on those kind of vehicles. So those in fleet vehicles probably will be the first ones to be kitted out, with the full set of possible data, everything we talked about, and then it'll go to individual users' cars.
For sure. I think, like, for example, just to give an example, a lot of cities now with their bus services or their fleets, like garbage trucks and things like that, they are actually installing telematics-based applications where, at the least, they can track how their drivers are driving, essentially. I think it's a fantastic way to, it's not about really tracking the drivers, because the successful implementations of this in like municipalities or cities being implemented is not necessarily with punitive and penalties, But if, let's say, you're a bus driver and you're driving really well in terms of acceleration, braking, cornering, obeying the speed limits, then you actually get rewarded. It could be incentives. It could be anything. I think we're seeing really good examples of this being implemented already. And to your point, with the fleets, because it's a business proposition, the driver really doesn't have a choice because it becomes part of the job. And as a bus driver, public bus driver, you're expected to drive safely. So it's just part of the package. I think early adopters will definitely be coming from like public use type of vehicles for sure.
Well, very good. So what's ahead in the next 6 months or a year for Tantalum? Where are you guys going, and what are you going to be deploying then?
I think we're looking at adding more, and I mean I gave you some tidbits in terms of the types of services we have deployed and we're continuing to deploy. So we continue to look at some of these domains like repair, fueling, parking, roadside, accident management, emergency response type of scenarios, and we want to make it more and more useful for drivers. I mean, US has been a big focus market for us. Again, we have our product now launched together with Harman and AT&T. I mean, if you walk into any AT&T retail store, it would be available. I think we're going to see more, we're going to put more and more innovation into that product. Then, I mean, we have a number of other opportunities. I mean, we're based in UK. We have a number of opportunities, similar type of opportunities going on in Europe. Plus, I think we're seeing a lot of traction working directly with automotive companies because automotive companies also realize that they're sitting on a gold mine when it comes to data, but not all of them have clear strategies in terms of how can they make use of this data, how can they make it or put it to good use for the benefit of the drivers. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is it's a little bit like, I mean, it hasn't been their core business. The core business has been building cars. I think this whole connected car, data, agile ways of working, being able to shift culturally from the long R&D cycles of automotive industry to be able to, let's pick your example. Okay, how can we actually create a user experience where we can help them where the charging stations are, and let's do that in 3 months. I think that whole cultural shift is not easy. So a lot of the automotive companies are also looking at us in terms of helping them in implementing their connected car strategies, because we come with our vision and in terms of our use cases, how can they take some of their ideas to market probably faster than they would have done if they were to just do it internally. So our focus is really in making our launch in US success, continuing to expand into Europe, and then working towards and expanding our partnerships with automotive companies where we are becoming more and more relevant for their future. So that's where the future lies for the next 6 to 12 months for us. It's been very exciting so far.
Yeah, I'm seeing the possibilities. It takes a little while for my mind to open up, but I think it's been a great interview. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Ozgur, and to collaborate?
I mean, probably the best way would through our website, and people can email me directly as well. I mean, ultimately, we are a small growing company, so we're quite responsive to anything. But the website is the best way, and there's a way to access us through that. You mentioned it, www.tantalumcorporation.com, or my email address, ozgur.tohumcu@tantalumcorporation.com. So thanks for your time. This has been fantastic. Great questions and very good insights. Amazing.
Well, very good, Ozgur. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.